All right, so I'm Bruce, K1BG. How many people here have been on field days before? Raise your hand. Okay, most everybody. How many haven't been on field days? I know some of the newer people here. So I get asked all the time, question I'm asked is, Bruce, I don't understand what's field day. And there's always a lot of confusion about what it is, and it's different things to different people. And I'm going to try to give you a flavor of what field day is all about, and also what the Nashoba Valley Amateur Radio Club does. If anyone has any questions, stop me, because this is not one of my typical marathon presentations, and everyone knows how much I like to talk. So if you have questions, let me know. All right. So what is field day? I mentioned earlier, it's different things for different people. Originally, it was designed to be a demonstration of emergency preparedness. The American Radio Relay League, I think the first field day they had was 1928. Don't quote me on that. Somewhere around the late 20s. And they set it up as a contest between amateur radio clubs. So there are points that you get. So many points for each phone contact. So many points for every data or CW contact. There are bonus points for different things. But it's kind of set up as a competitive activity. And because of this, it runs a 24-hour period. Or at least we operate during a 24-hour period. So it's definitely a demonstration of emergency preparedness. It's also a demonstration of amateur radio. Groups are encouraged to set up in public locations. We set up in the Heald Street Orchard in Pepperell, which is a fairly large piece of open land, open space. We kind of have our favorite place for setting up, and when you go on field day, you'll understand why we set up there. We call it the knoll. It's a high area in the orchard. And a lot of people use that. They walk their dogs. There's a swimming hole at the end of the dirt road that goes right past where we set up. So there's a lot of people that come by. We have a few members of the club, and I know Jim, AB1WQ, is one of those who was walking past our field day one year and said, what are you guys doing? And lo and behold, he's now a long-term member of the club and an extra class ham. So it kind of works, all right? I mentioned earlier there's a point system, so it is kind of a radio contest. I will tell you, and we'll talk about this more later, the club really doesn't care about the contest part of it, okay? We score points. When we get on the air, we like to do the best that we can, but we kind of have an unwritten rule that the operator with the least amount of experience has priority when it comes to operating the stations, okay? This is supposed to be a learning opportunity and a teaching opportunity. So those of us that have been around get an opportunity to elmer other people. People who are new hams get to learn about a lot of things. And I don't know if I actually talk about that in a slide or not. I do. So I won't go into details now, okay? It's part outing, part picnic, part social gathering. We'll talk more about this. If you want to learn about amateur radio, if you want to meet people in the Nashoba Valley Amateur Radio Club, this is a great way, other than, an hour and a half at a monthly meeting. This is a great way to sit down with people and get to know them. Field day is always a lot of fun. That's why I do amateur radio, because I enjoy it. So I encourage everybody to come out and spend some time. So we talked about demonstration of emergency preparedness. You're supposed to set up stations in places that aren't normally used for amateur radio, whatever those may be. And they don't really restrict you to anything, but they want you to set up in a place where you don't have a big tower and you don't have emergency power and all of those kinds of things. They want you to use non-commercial power. Jim, N8VIM, has been our power guy for, I don't know how many years now, 15, 20 years, something like that. But he's got a nice diesel generator on a trailer. He drives up, he turns it on, and we have more power than we can use for the entire weekend. He has never let us down. I do not remember, maybe once. I don't remember the power ever going off during field day, which I've been on a lot of field days where you're sitting there operating and then all of a sudden you hear some sputtering and then it's quiet after that, okay? Equipment set up temporarily and there's a limited setup time. We cannot go out on Saturday or Sunday this week and start setting up towers and doing all that kind of stuff. I think you can start setting up Thursday night at 8 o'clock, and you can only set up for 24 hours if you want to do that. We don't have any of those kinds of ambitious setups. We start setting up on Saturday morning. We're usually good to go before field day starts. We take everything down Sunday afternoon, and we go home. This is a demonstration of amateur radio. We talked about people walking by the Heald Street Orchard. There's a lot of people that walk in. We keep a sign-up sheet. We try to get people who just walk in, okay, to sign in on the sign-in sheet. And we ask people, are you interested in more information about amateur radio, about the club, those kinds of things. Try to engage those people. We publicize the event, so notices have gone out to the local press. I don't know if people read like the local newspapers anymore. I know I don't, but the local newspapers have all gotten notices of the activation, and hopefully you'll see something in the local newspapers. We've been pouring stuff into social media. I've been sending out emails to my email list. We've had, Zach has done several things on the web page. We've been sharing these and forwarding these and doing all kinds of things on Facebook. So we're getting a lot of publicity. Please bring family members, friends, kids, grandkids, anyone you would think would be interested in amateur radio. There is a youth bonus. If you bring young people and they make contacts, there are bonus points for doing this, okay? And you never know when you're going to plant a seed and get either somebody interested in amateur radio short term, or whether they'll come back in 20 years and say, I saw something like this when I was a kid, okay? And I'm interested in it. So please bring other people, okay? We've sent invitations. It turns out you get bonus points if you're visited by an elected official. You get bonus points if you're visited by, is it a public official, I think, or I can't remember. But both have been invited, okay, so we'll see if they show up. Did I miss one? No. Wow, that's weird. It's just weird the way the text jumps, like there's an extra slide in there. Interesting. Oh, well, okay. I mentioned earlier that this is a contest, okay? We don't focus on the contest part. Every year when field day is done, somebody will call me up or send me an email and say, Bruce, how did we do? Okay? And my response is, we had 22 people who made contacts this year, okay? 8 of them were under the age of 20 years old, and we had a lot of fun, okay? No, what was the score? And so we'll tell them what the score is and do that kind of thing. I've been with clubs where getting big scores on field day was really important, okay? In my own personal opinion, I think it divides people a whole lot more than it brings people together. I would rather have people who are not normally on the air or visitors coming in, making contacts and enjoying themselves and having fun than me to sit down for 24 hours and make contacts. I can do that from home. I can do that during serious contests. This is field day. We're supposed to all be having a good time and interacting. So there are points, there are multipliers, there are bonus points. John has been focusing on squeezing out every last drop of bonus points that we possibly can, okay? And he's done a good job at that, but there are some bonus points where it's like, this is just too much trouble, and it's more trouble than it's worth, and so let's not do it and let's move on. So like I said earlier, we do not seriously compete in field day. Teaching learning opportunities. Ooh, I have to change that to plural. This is my favorite part of field day. Anybody who's seen me on field day knows this is the part I like the best. As far as a teaching and learning opportunity goes, I have personally learned more at field day than any other amateur radio activities that I've ever participated in combined, okay? And that has to do with stations, and that has to do with antennas, and that has to do with operating, okay? I can honestly say that for me, field day is like the highlight of the year. If you're interested in knowing more about how to set up a station, meaning all of the things that we're talking about here, okay, there's no better opportunity than field day. It gives you a lot of time to ask questions and to learn, okay? We're going to have scheduled educational activities. There's an educational bonus. So we've talked about some of the things. We're going to do, I know one we talked about was doing FT8, okay? You know, the theory behind FT8 and how to operate using FT8, that kind of thing. We talked a little bit about doing an educational activity on things like the bandpass filters that we're using. But we'll come up with a list of scheduled educational activities, okay? What's that?
Yes.
A repeater tour. The repeater is located adjacent to where the field day is, and I hadn't heard about that, but that's a great idea. So, we're going to be operating. If you want to learn about operating, particularly operating more contest style or pileup style, we'll have a total of 4 stations. One of them is what's called the GOTA station. Stands for Get on the Air. Okay? The GOTA station is limited to people who are newly licensed, relatively inactive, or technician class licensees. Okay? If you fall into that category, the station is set up and sitting there waiting for you. But if somebody is sitting there and operating that station and you want to go to one of the other stations to operate, you're absolutely welcome to do that as long as there's a control operator there. Okay? So that's not a limitation. It's an additional opportunity to operate, and it's one that people like me, I can't take advantage of that station. Okay? So that station is there for you. Everyone, I'm sure, will get opportunities to operate. I know we've had years, there's many a time, you know, you go and look at the station and you'll find nobody sitting at the station operating because people are too busy drinking coffee or chatting or doing something else. So there should be plenty of opportunities to operate. When we say part outing, part picnic, part social gathering, we have a general area that's set aside, tables, chairs, food, where we can just sit and converse, okay? And I kind of love sitting there when I'm not operating because it gives me a chance to just interact with everybody else who's visiting the field day. So it's an outdoor location. We have covering, so if it's raining, that kind of thing, you're out of the elements. We are planning pizza on Saturday, breakfast on Sunday. I know Charlie, AB1ZN, is that Charlie's called? I think so. Yeah. Charlie is planning on doing sausages and rolls and that kind of thing again. Leo, I know you bring cooking stuff. I don't know if you're planning on that, just the shelter, but you are planning on the shelter and that stuff, right? Okay. So generally there's plenty of food there for the weekend. All right. People ask me, how come you're so passionate about field day? Here is a young WA1KBG. My guess is this is 1970 or 1971. This is Sunday morning, and it's been a long weekend. What's that? Yeah, it's because I was sleeping on the ground in a tent that didn't have a floor. The previous year was a good sunspot year. 15 meters was open the whole field day. Okay, and so they said, Bruce, we're going 4 transmitters this year. We need somebody to be the 15-meter station captain. I said, I'll do that. Okay. So thinking about it, we need a gain antenna. So I did a homebrew quad. Okay. Got some spreaders at a flea market, and don't know how I did the centerpiece. Set it up at the side of a cliff. This is in Brimfield, Massachusetts. John knows where this location is, I think. This is by Steerage Rock. And got the tarp, got everything set up, okay. Antenna worked beautifully, beautiful SWR. Band never opened the whole 24 hours, okay. So that was kind of that, okay. But I've been on field day. There have been maybe 1 or 2 years I've missed field day. 1 year I graduated from college, and my parents felt that it was important that I go to my graduation. And 1 year we were moving house that weekend, and my wife felt that it was important that I help do some of the work there. But other than that, I also, field day weekend in Europe is 2 weeks before our field day. And so when I lived in England, the years I lived in England, I used to do field day in England and then rush home and do field day here. So there were years that I did field day twice. So anyway, NVARC field day. When you drive down Heald Street, this house that you see here, this is 112 Heald Street in Pepperell. If you plug 112 Heald Street, Pepperell into your GPS, you'll come down, you'll see this sign, and you'll see this open gate. This is where you enter. If you go up the dirt road, you can't miss us. Okay, there'll be a parking area up there. And in fact, this year, the GOTA station will be down near the parking area, so as you come up the road, you're going to instantly see us. This is what you see at the top of the quote-unquote knoll, okay? So in this particular year, we had 2 stations set up. Oop, I want to go back. We had 2 stations set up. This was one HF station. Behind it was another HF station. This is similar to what we're planning this year. Had a couple of masts with wire antennas coming off the masts. This has worked very well on field day. It's a very simple setup, and it's very effective. What you see in behind is people in the common area, and I'll go there in a minute. And you see this tree here? Well, this tree is this tree here, the tree behind the common area. So this is the common area where everybody sits, converses, eats, does all of that kind of thing, okay? It's covered, and generally we have food in this area here, and people just sit and converse. There's a coffee pot that goes on. Anybody have any questions? I mean, it's pretty simple. Spend a lot of time in this area. In behind, you'll see this shelter here. This is typically the 6-meter, 2-meter station, VHF, UHF, okay? And what you see here is the 6-meter Yagi, okay, on a mast. So this is pretty much the entire setup. There's Leo. This was a few years ago, Leo. And more photographs of people sitting, talking, eating, doing that kind of thing. I added this slide in, okay. We also splurged to get a porta potty, so we're out in the middle of the orchard, and nobody is risking poison ivy or something else by heading out behind a tree, okay. We splurge on the high-class porta potty, so it's got a sink inside with water, and I wouldn't say it's hot running water, but it's enough to like wash up and do that kind of thing if you want to. And what's interesting is that if you zoom in, you'll notice that this is not one of our operating positions, but the call sign is spelled out on the porta potty. All right. Then it's just pictures of what you're going to see on field day, okay? We get kids that come in on field day that make contacts. Jim doing his power thing. This is his generator. And like I said, this is amazingly, I'm always amazed. There was a time, this is a diesel generator, there was a time when before it actually became pricey, when they gave it away, Jim would go around to the local restaurants and get the spent oils and stuff and convert that to fuel, and we would get the natural power bonus points out of that. There's a natural power bonus. We'll do that. Elliot W1MJ has a solution for that this year. I know he's signed up to get that bonus. You get a bonus if you make 5 contacts using something other than I think fossil fuel power. Either solar or a battery charged by solar, one of those kinds of things. You get bonus points for that. Typical operating. We have a table set up like one of these tables, about the size of these tables here, and we set equipment up. So transceiver, monitors, whatever ancillary stuff you have running. This doesn't have anything on the tables, but I'm sure there's Leo again. One of the other club members, this is Peter, N1ZRG, longtime club member. So this is Bob, W1XP. This was a number of years ago because I recognized this monitor well. This is my station monitor for a long time, and it's one of the old big honkin' CRT tubes. But this has got this box, which has a bunch of filters in it. So when we talk about a learning opportunity for field day, you're going to see how we set things up and why those things are there and all that kind of stuff. Okay. There's John operating. John had, I think, a little more hair back then. And there's me one of the years. This is before I went gray. 2018. Or not.
Oh, no, you were gray then.
So, this is it. By the way, I mentioned Elliot, W1MJ. This was a field day, maybe, 1973, maybe, 1974, okay? We were in 2 adjacent radio clubs that would set up a couple of miles apart. We used to beat them every year, okay? So Elliot came over one year and we declared a truce, and that was the end of that. And I think that's all I got. Any questions? Anybody? Comments? I hope that helped explain what field day is, and you're going to find out.
Do you have bug control?
Bring your own bug control.
That's right. Suntan lotion, bug repellent.
The Bruce, are there other field days around the state and other clubs that are doing field days?
So I'll give you for instance, the Nashoba Club does a field day. The Westford Club does a field day. I don't think Marlborough does anymore, but the Billerica Club does a field day. And then it's not just limited to quote-unquote clubs. Individuals can go out and do field days as well. So you'll have, I know in 2014, I did a single field day myself, okay? So I was in what's called the 1A category, one transmitter emergency power. So there are lots of field days around. Almost every club has one. Jim has something called the ARRL Field Day Locator, where clubs can list their field days on an interactive map. And there are people that will like go from one field day to another and look around and do that kind of thing. So,
Google's ARRL Field Day locator.
right. Steve?
We talked for half an hour on this, but United States doesn't need it anymore. 4 alpha plus a 6 meter station, UHF, VHF, because we're going to use that to push WinLink messages.
So they do a larger field day, is what you're saying, 4 transmitters.
Large, but it's not huge. We're going to use my camp for 2 of the stations, the 6 meter and a general one, last one. Food is a little bit squirrely this year, but that's okay. We're going to be doing an educational tent, and in the educational tent, we're going to teach things about go boxes, FTA, WinLink, maybe a few other surprises. Oh, they're going to have a Fox hunt too for the kids.
Yeah, there's been talk about W1MJ doing a fox hunt as well during our field day. Is that right, John? Yeah. Yeah. So we may do that as well. John?
I talked on AM for 40 years, so guy in Pennsylvania, his field days is 29.
Yeah. 20 transmitters simultaneously. I know they all get on the air when the contest starts. It's debatable whether they're all on the air for the entire field day. But yeah, I want to say something like 28 or 30. You say there was one year at 31?
It was ours.
So, you know, it used to be that you were limited phone CW, but now it's data as well. Okay. And what happens is you're allowed a free VHF UHF, but if you put one station on 6 meters, one on 2 meters, one on 440, one on, or I should say 3 on each of those bands, because you have a phone station, a CW station, and a data station, those numbers add up very fast. And whether you actually talk to anyone or not on some of those bands is debatable, but it counts for the number of stations you have on simultaneously, and chances are nobody will be competing in the same class that you're in. So.
What is the term free VHF station?
Okay, so we're going to be in what's called the 2A class. The A class means we're a club or non-club portable group operating with emergency power. And the 2 transmitter means we are operating 2 transmitters simultaneously. And we set ours up so that we have one station that's geared for phone, meaning single sideband talking, and one set up for CW, Morse code. However, our unwritten rule is both stations are capable of operating on any of the modes at any time. So if it's the middle of the night and you want to operate and somebody's already operating phone and nobody is on the CW station, you plop yourself down, you pick up the microphone, and you start making contacts. Okay? Those are the 2 stations. Because VHF, UHF, the higher frequencies, typically don't have long-distance openings, the ARRL wants to encourage people to use those frequencies, and so they allow you to have a single VHF, UHF station that doesn't change the category that you're in, okay? They also want to encourage the GOTA stations, the Get on the Air station, okay? And so that's not only an additional station that counts towards the score, but the GOTA station will have a different call sign so that you can talk to all the same stations that the main stations have already spoken to. So you're only allowed to speak to each station once on each band in each mode, but if you're using the GOTA station, there's no restriction. You're your own separate call sign, and you talk to as many stations as you can, and you don't worry about the duplicates from the main station. So, how are you doing the logging, you mean? So we're using N1MM, and the stations are linked together. So if you're on one station and you work someone, you'll know it immediately on the other stations whether you've spoken to them or not. That's a good question. So we use the club's call sign, N1NC, and everybody will use the call sign N1NC. The GOTA station will have a separate call sign, okay? And that call sign will be John's call sign, K1JEB, Juliet Echo Bravo. So, in other words, if I'll be operating, I'll be saying CQ Field Day, this is November 1, November Charlie. Another operator comes in, they enter their information in N1MM to get started, and we'll have instructions on all of this, okay? And then you operate and you call CQ, this is November 1, November Charlie, okay? So everybody uses the same call signs for the weekend.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. So the question that was asked before was on call signs. Do you use your own call sign, or how does the call sign work? And then the follow-on question was, how does the fox hunt work? So fox hunt is a hidden transmitter hunt, okay? They call it a fox hunt because the fox is hidden and presumably the hounds are chasing, okay? So you hide some kind of transmitter that identifies every once in a while, and then the people that are looking for it use their equipment for finding where the fox is. And we'll talk about that as one of the educational activities on how to do that. People really get into fox hunting. They have these highly directional arrays, and they triangulate, and they do all of these things. I've always had a lot of success by just using a handheld transceiver, using my body as an attenuator to find a direction, okay? And when you get really close, taking the antenna off and using my body as an attenuator. And that generally works for me. I don't know if I'm the fastest at finding the foxes, but I have fun doing that. But again, that'll be one of the educational activities, and we'll talk about how fox hunts work. And Elliot has a pretty sophisticated automated fox, so he can go out and set it up and turn it on and not tell anybody where it is, and then come back and give the talk and demonstrate it and then set everybody off. So. I don't know that we have, but I would think use the local repeater, because the repeater is right there.
So it's a 24-hour event.
Yes.
And if you come to the beginning, are you expected to stay the whole 24 hours?
Okay, so the question is, it's a 24-hour event, and if you come from the beginning, are you expected to stay?
Can you leave? Not expectations.
It all depends on how passionate you are about field day, okay? There are some of us who will be there the entire time, okay? There are other people that come and show up and look around and get a feel for it and decide what they're going to do. There are people that show up for an hour, okay, thinking, oh, this is interesting kind of thing, and we don't see them leave until the final bit of stuff is packed up the following day, okay? They have a really good time. So there's no obligation. It's not like you're obligated to do anything. Just kind of play it by ear, I would say. The field day period, we operate from 2 p.m. Saturday until 2 p.m. Sunday. If you get into the details of the field day rules, if you don't show up on the site until 2 o'clock on Saturday, like right when it starts, then you can operate for 27 hours. So they give you an extra 3 hours at the end, okay?
But nobody's on at that time because...
Very few people do that. So at the end of the field day, there's nobody kind of left to talk to, or, people start packing up and leaving. Otherwise, you can operate for 24-hour periods. So if you're late getting set up, late starting, you can go a little bit later than the 2 o'clock, but it's generally 24 hours. So we go 2 p.m. Saturday to 2 p.m. Sunday. We start setting up about 9:30 in the morning on Saturday. We typically go for breakfast at a place in Pepperell, and then we get to the site and we start setting up. And generally, things are set up. We start 9:30, generally 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Sometimes the weather here 11.
You know, we used to do really big antennas, and that seemed to take a lot more time to set up. And since we went to just wire antennas, and the way I explain it to people is like, well, don't you want the big towers and the big antennas and all that kind of stuff? That helps when you're operating from home and everybody's using kilowatt amplifiers and big towers and big antennas and stuff. But on field day, everybody's using, not everybody, but most people are using 100 watts and a piece of wire. And so if you're using 100 watts and a piece of wire, you're just like everybody else, and that's a lot of fun. So there were some more questions. Leo. Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. So the Pepperell 4th of July parade is Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Okay? So a lot of us will be on site by like 9:30, but in the email I send out this week, it'll have the exact location, and I'll try to figure out some alternate directions kind of thing, so that you can avoid the center of Pepperell. I would say probably the way to go is like towards like the North Middlesex Regional High School, and then go in from that direction. Yeah. So. I'll on the next email blast that I send out, I'll make sure that's all included. I hadn't even thought of that, and that is important. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Just a comment about bonus points. There's a broadcast from the league. Yeah, we do it multiple ways for CW, digital, outside CW. And heads up, don't correct any. We just submit it, it's got to be okay, including the errors. And it's easy under report, so we do all stations on listen, just do it.
The field day message, yes.
But there are dead instances.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.